Jim, welcome to the show. And would you like to start by introducing yourself and what you do, what your business is about?
Thank you, Massimo. I'm Jim Doyle, jimjdoyle.com online. The J is very important because there are too many Jim Doyles in the world.
Excellent.
That's the reality.
Yes, yeah? It's a common name.
Indeed, a common name. My long-term background is electronics engineer, working with physics and electronics and high tech. But I was always interested in internal things and psychic things. And I had a bit of a midlife transition, shall we say, when I had a calling and certain things happened to me, where I ended up training extensively as an energy healer, which is a complete change, obviously.
Yes, from an electronic engineer, yes.
Yeah.
And so when did that happen?
That was around the millennium. I had a whole...
So 2000.
Yeah, so 18 years ago.
Wow, that's a long time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so 18 years, how... Do you want to give us a bit more information about the call you mentioned? You had a call.
Yeah. Well, it was a call. A series of things happened to me where I had a minor medical issue, not important, not critical. Didn't like the conventional solution.
Okay.
Went to a Mind, Body, Soul exhibition and had an experience there with somebody which just blew my mind.
Okay.
And that was about ancestral work. I'm going, well, where they believe that every problem we have comes from our ancestors. I ended up somewhat unwillingly initially, but doing a lot of work with them and had experiences there which were way outside my comfort zone, to put it mildly, off the scale. At the end of that, I had a big longing inside. There was something missing. Okay. And I ended up going to an energy healing weekend, and then I knew without question, forget money or purpose or anything else, I had to do this 3-year course.
Wow. Okay.
And as I was doing that, I was working with people as practice homeworks, and there were incredible things happening. I mean, of biblical proportions, changing, and literally. So I was in this mindset of I'm sort of half engineer, I'm half very spiritual. There's this crazy stuff happening to me. And I'm going, who am I? I'm having an identity crisis.
Right.
It wasn't easy.
Okay. So you said that before you were an electronic engineer,
yes.
You were working as a hardware person, or?
I was an electronics engineer working with hardware. I was also a research manager at one point as well.
Okay.
And so working with very high tech, literally with drops of ink traveling 40 miles an hour, thinner than a human hair.
Inkjet printing.
Inkjet printing for printing on cans, like those date codes you see.
Oh, fantastic.
Which was absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so did the electronic engineering influence at all this transition, or it was a kind of a paradigm shift?
Taking a very long-term view, yes. Very much so, because just to elaborate on my energy healing training, which is conventionally hands-on or doing distant healing with people the other side of the world, I also learned to do dowsing, which is very similar to kinesiology, muscle testing. Yeah, yes. So when I was quite young, and where I've evolved to is I now use kinesiology to measure the things like commitment, emotion, pain threshold, etc. Yes. So I apply the measurement techniques of engineering to a lot of the aspects of healing, which is quite unusual.
Right.
So as well as being empathic, because I can feel things on people when we're connected, as it were, the other side of the world.
Okay. So this is kind of like the old saying: what you can measure, you can treat, or you can
absolutely.
Deal with, yes?
But I can also work with clients just on Skype or whatever, and get them to get a sense of measurement of some problem in their life, how bad it is, so they know when we've done some work, they can then remeasure it and go, oh yeah, I feel about a 2 or instead of a 10. Right. For example, I worked with somebody on fear of public speaking, which is an area I've now very much graduated into, because that was a real challenge of mine. Yes. As an engineer, I was very heady but not very good at connecting to people.
Absolutely common for every engineer.
Exactly,
Yes.
Exactly. And So I've ended up going down that route and worked with 200 odd Toastmasters in Budapest at the European conference on stage presence. And so I do that as well. But I worked recently with a client who I asked them, what's the big problem? They said, I'm terrified of public speaking. And they quantified it as being sort of 10 plus, really bad.
Absolutely.
At the end of the session, they told me it was less than 1 on a single session.
Confident to step on stage and talk publicly.
Completely. Their I spoke to them subsequently, and their voice sounds completely different.
Right. Amazing. It is amazing the transformation you can have on people.
I keep being astonished.
Okay, so when you said, so about 18 years ago, you had this call, you went to this courses, you train yourself into the healing and this process. So then did you have a kind of a quick change of career, or was it a progressive one?
I wish.
Which one?
Because quite simply, I was in a state then where when we do a career change of something as deep as that, then what comes to the surface is a lot of our own limitations, a lot of our own fears and doubts and shame and guilt and everything else. And I had just about everything you can imagine coming to the surface. So for quite some time, good few years, I was actually sort of half engineering to pay the bills and doing a little bit of healing work on the side, and then working into the speaking confidence.
Right.
So it was a very gradual change for me.
Okay. And for how long have you dismissed your engineering work at all?
Oh yes, I have. I finally stopped completely 6 years ago, but it was
6. Okay.
Yeah, but it was tailing off anyway.
Right. So when you say there were a lot of things holding you back, what were if you can list maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or
the things
the
were
key points?
Well, self-belief. Self-belief was the biggest thing that was holding me back, because who am I to step out there? I'm kind of, can I do this? I'm terrified.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of real deep stuff coming up.
Absolutely.
So talk about imposter syndrome. This was spelt in blazing capitals across the sky everywhere I
can't do that.
I can't do that. Who am I? But yet inside there was this knowledge, there was this burning passion to share. And that's my driving force now.
Yes.
Which is I made this midlife discovery of all this inner information and freedom. It's not magic. They're natural skills that we all have, but they are suppressed in just about every culture going.
Right.
And it's not magic. It's not weird. It's not woo-woo. It just is. And when I talk to people, clients or potential clients, I just tell them, a story or my story or whatever. And very often it just bursts into tears like that. I haven't said anything to them. I haven't done anything. They just recognize the truths I'm speaking.
Right. Wow. If there is one, what was the biggest challenge in all this process? If there is one thing that you can mention off the top of your head.
His name's Jim.
His name is Jim.
Yes. His name's Jim. He says, looking at himself, because quite simply,
yes,
for most people as well, was my biggest challenge. It wasn't about marketing or anything like that, although I wasn't particularly good at it. My challenge was myself, my inner dialogue going on, because every time I met a client, I was, if you like, as an engineer, my role is kind of repairing, fixing things. So I'm trying to fix the world.
Yes.
So I started out with that, and that's pretty big commitment.
Yes.
Bit of overload.
Over commitment. Yes.
And also being careful not to take on other people's emotional issues as well, where they trigger mine.
Yes.
I'm reasonably immune to that now.
Well, I guess you learned how to be resilient. Yes. Yeah. And there's a question, like, how was within your family when you started to express this interest in changing career? How was your support from your family, from your wife?
Variable. Somewhere between crisis, panic, and wow. All of those at different times.
Yes.
My wife embarked on my journey to some extent, sort of parallel journey to some extent for a period of time.
Okay.
But then, for reasons which even if it wasn't just on the podcast, I would find hard to put into words.
No.
Decided it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So it had real challenges. Because something of this depth, this wasn't just a job change or a slight career change.
Engineering one company to engineering another company. This is like a life change.
This is totally life changing. So yes, it was a real challenge. There were a lot of issues.
Yes.
And I wouldn't say they've all gone away yet either.
No. It's okay. It's great. Okay, thank you very much. So can you just give us a very quick outlook of how, in a few words, how you work? Say you meet a client, which could be me. So explaining also the kind of client you work, but how you work first of all.
Well, the kind of client I work with generally now, as I said earlier on, is somebody who say they have their business, they've been running for some time. Yeah, they've had moderate success, they've got growth ambition in front of them, but they may have hit a plateau or a ceiling, sort of glass ceiling, and they're struggling a bit. So they may have feeling out of the depth, one way or another. And so I work with people like that, and it can be all kinds of issues. So when I'm chatting, so if you said to me, Jim, I'm really having a few challenges with the business or some specific issue, so I'll just ask a few questions about how you feel about it, because a lot of the time people don't know how to connect to their emotional aspect of the problems they have.
Absolutely.
Socially, we're all in our heads.
Yes.
And what I tend to do is bring them into the connection. And sometimes it's just ask them how they feel, and they go, what do you mean?
Yes.
And
they never measure
we have a place in our body where we feel it. But so one of the things I often do, which can be just in itself life changing, I say, okay, Massimo, so this problem we're talking about, where do you feel it? And you might say you feel it in your stomach, for example. And I say, let me just check something for you. And then I do a bit of kinesiology on me with my fingers and thumbs. And go, I'm just going to check something. And what I'm doing is looking if there's a trigger, an emotional trigger in your life that's leading up to that event.
Okay.
Now, I don't know your story. You haven't written pages and pages. You haven't told me, and you could. I still wouldn't understand. So what I do is just check. So, did Massimo have a trigger for this life? Yeah. Okay. Was it before he was 10? No. 20? Oh, it was between 10 and 20. So I got a no before 10. I got a yes before 20, and then narrow it down on a yes/no basis. So I'm just doing this internally. It's much easier that way because there's no conflicting interaction between us. And then I might turn to you and say, did something interesting happen when you were 15 or 16 years old? So I give you typically about a 1 year window. Now, I would say in 80% of the cases, people go, I don't really want to talk about that. That's fine, because I don't need to know the details. But when you think about that, where do you feel the response? And more often than not, your physical response would be in the same place as where you're feeling the issue we're talking about.
The blockage.
And at that point, you go, oh my goodness, this issue I've got now is related to that stuff that happened to me way back in my life.
Right.
And just that knowledge on its own, which is just a warm-up, is massive. Just that awareness.
How great.
And then can do work, distantly or whatever, in terms of clearing that energy or block.
Okay. And
one other thing I do is I also work with ancestral work, which is when I started back 20 odd years ago. Because what I do is, in the same way, I identify 150 plus possible aspects for a problem we're working with.
Yes.
They're nicely in groups, so we don't have to test all 150.
No.
And but one of them is very specifically ancestral or epigenetic, as it's called.
Okay.
And what I do is identify. So, say for the issue we're talking about, is there an ancestral issue? I go, okay, father's side, mother's side, and go back. Might be 4, 5, 6 generations. You have no idea, but there is somebody has done something back there, and this kind of memory has come down and impacted you.
Wow.
And it's possible to clear that. And it makes massive differences. I've seen people have massive physical changes like that when it's cleared.
Fascinating. Okay, so let's say you talk to this CEO of this company. He or she they hit a plateau. They have an issue. They would like to grow their company, or they would like to do something better, different from their company. They can't. So you try to get them to do it. You identify where the blockage is, and then what?
Then I work with them to clear those blockages, and then we sequentially work through and see what other ones there are.
Right.
Now, each case is individual,
of course,
because they may have a specific issue, or they may need a longer term support role. If it's just identifying and clearing a blockage, then that's substantially what I do. I don't undertake training programs. I mean, I help people, get people to clear stage fright and real blocks that are holding them back.
Yeah.
I have done, and I can do speech training and body language and everything else.
Yes.
I don't normally undertake that except in a group, perhaps in a small workshop.
Right.
So clear the blocks to performance. Reevaluate their goals, their ambitions, where they are, what other challenges they may have.
Yeah.
Because when we get rid of one block, it creates a space for others to pop to the surface.
All right.
It's just like the stack of plates at the end of a restaurant. You pick a plate and there's another one and another one and another one. Now, but we only deal with the ones that are necessary. Yeah.
I understand. Fantastic. Okay. So when you work multiple sessions with the same person, so are all the sessions more or less structured the same way?
No. They evolve.
They evolve. So how long is a typical session?
Hour, 90 minutes tops.
90 minutes.
Yeah. I also do half-day sessions, especially for some people who've got a lot. And that may well be just a half day or even a full day. They would be fairly rare because that's a whole review and working through. That's quite intense. The full one definitely involves a leisurely lunch.
Of course.
Because we would both need it.
Yes, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so is there a typical outcome out of this session? So people come to you with a number of different issues, a number of different blockages, let's call them. Those blockages are limitation for them to achieve certain goals of their life. Is there one typical outcome?
There's one word, validation, because very often people are struggling with not sure being where to go, and then they can validate that. So the work we do allows them to understand that they really did have a problem that there was just under the surface they couldn't understand, and we can clear that if necessary, because usually it's a question of clearing it, not just identifying it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can clear that, and they get the validation. And lighter is a word people use. I feel so much lighter. Yeah, it's like a weight off my mind. Okay. And it's not just a sort of, I feel lighter. It's total change. And I've seen people, their faces just, it's almost as though they unage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
By quite a few years in some cases.
Right. And they usually achieve what they wanted to achieve in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with people who have, so we agreed to do, say, 4 sessions, and comprehensive work, comprehensive challenges they have. And by the end of the 3rd session, we both agree they have achieved what it is they need to achieve.
There's no need to drag it on. Yes,
absolutely, yes.
So you mentioned 4 sessions. Is 4 sessions a typical work for you?
I wish. I'm not a good marketing prospect. I'm actually too good at my job.
Right. That means that you do less than 4 sessions typically?
Usually, it's probably 2 to 3. 2 would be more relevant.
Yeah. And so when you meet a client for the first time, do they know how many sessions they're going to see you? Or is it like a discovering process on the first session?
I muscle test again. I test to see what it is they apparently need, and that's usually pretty accurate.
Right.
So if somebody comes to me with a problem, I can go, okay, we can probably sort that in a session. You might need a follow-up session.
Yes.
Or, let's do 4 sessions together, and that should be enough. And there might be a follow-up session a year later or something like that. But initially,
of course,
there's just the short number of sessions to get to the root issues.
Great. In terms of your business, the way you run your business, I know you're very active. I see you in a lot of different places where I also go. So I know you are very active in what you do when you're not dealing with clients on a daily basis. Do you have a particular daily or weekly routine around the way you run your practice, your business?
Yes and no.
Okay. Let's see the yes and the no.
Yes and no. I do not run an absolutely regular structured routine because the nature, I work with a fairly broad range of clients, and I've recently changed. I'm narrowing down my range of clients because I was trying to cover too many fronts.
Okay.
And it's very easy to get carried away on social media, etc., following too many trends. So bad move. So I'm narrowing down, and I'm working with my social media contacts, my existing clients, and I'm working with a few coaching groups as well.
Okay.
One in London and one international.
Okay.
And those can actually be a very interesting source of clients because much of what I do is if you like, a specialist area.
Yes.
And the nature of the work I do is it tends to cut straight to the core issues, and it can help other coaches get faster results as well for their clients if they're happy to work with them.
So you help coaches in their job so that they can be better coaches. All right.
Yes, yeah, I've had quite a number of coaches as clients as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So going back to the weekly routine, you don't have a specific, on a Monday I do this, on a Tuesday I do that kind of thing.
I would have said I have a flexi routine. That's not a tongue-in-cheek for saying I haven't got one.
No.
Which is, I have an outline, I'm doing this for half of Monday, this half of Tuesday, and basically do it effectively in Evernote or something like that. And then let it expand and contract slightly.
Sure.
What is very important is self-care.
Yes.
In what I do.
Yes.
I like my walks in nature.
Yes.
Very, very important.
Great. Do you have any particular morning routine from when you get up in the morning to the first thing you do business-wise?
Usually, I do a short meditation, 15 minutes. Okay. I then do a bit of qigong, might do a bit of exercise, and I always try and deliberately focused walk for a couple of miles during the day.
Right.
Yeah. Apart from any other walking. So I don't do masses of exercise.
No.
But I'm frequently, not constantly, but very frequently during the day, aware of what's going on internally, physically as well as
So you keep yourself monitored to be under control.
Yeah, in a comfortable way. Not a paranoid way.
No, of course. Yeah. No, but yes. And I know you also cycle in a lot of
That's true, yes.
Cycle a lot, yes. Yeah. Excellent. Right, okay. Now a bit of forward thinking. So where do you see yourself in 3 years in terms of this business?
In terms of turnover, I can't give you a figure, but I do see myself travelling and speaking on the world stage.
Right.
Well within 3 years' time, and I've already done some.
Yes.
But in a more focused way, and I'm shaping that aspect of the business now because what I see is the taking what I do opens up a lot of possibilities, and quite frankly, not being cocky, challenging a lot of the wisdom that's out in the world at large.
Yes.
Just reading some stuff from experts the other day. It's like, really? They don't know their magnetics from their electromagnetics, and etc. Yeah, but there's other aspects of that. There's a whole consciousness issue and raising mankind's consciousness.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure where it's going, but I certainly see that as being part of the role that I should be carrying out. Right. My shoulds as opposed to other people's shoulds.
Great. Okay. Is there been what has been your proudest moment in this current service you offer, this current activity?
Just a couple of months ago, I was giving a talk in London, and there were, I gave the title was something like, what? They said, "Are you your grandmother?" It was the title, which was like, it started as epigenetics and then led into all the aspects of being spiritual. I was the third speaker of the evening. There were 35 people in the audience,
Okay.
and 66% of them signed up for a 15-minute chat with me.
66%.
23 out of 35 people.
Wow, that's a lot.
That was what I thought.
You hit the spot, really.
I did.
Fantastic.
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so if you could give some advice to someone who feels in a similar situation, had a job for a long time, would like to start their own business, is there any advice you would suggest to them? Because a lot of people out there, I'm pretty sure, they are stuck in a job that they don't like.
Yes.
Many of us have done jobs that they didn't like. And you say, I would like to do something different. I guess a lot of people are held back because at the moment they are a regular paycheck at the end of the month, which is kind of comforting. So you kind of put up with lots of stuff. Yeah. Is there an advice you could offer to someone who wants to start their own?
And first of all, a cautionary. The laptop lifestyle, which is portrayed as being readily available out there, is available and can be great for a lot of people, but it has its own challenges. No, I don't live the laptop lifestyle. No. I know a number of people who do.
Yes.
And it has its own challenges. And that's one. So that's a bit of a dream. The practicality is that you need to be reasonably sure what you do. If it's a bit of a calling like mine, then having a bit of a financial cushion is very useful, because otherwise you may have a very difficult time because you've got internal stuff going on.
Yes.
And as well as the real life challenges.
Yeah.
You can't be 100%. Well, there's an expression from somebody that many people die with their music inside them. Right. And it's very important to be able to express that music. And it's better to take a chance, but do what you can to get into that place where you really want to go. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not just jumping out of where you are to escape, because that's not a good reason to move forward. And I know a lot of people who do that, who have done it, and then they end up still jumping.
In trouble.
Yeah, yes. in trouble. So it's finding that motivation, finding that passion that drives you, finding your passion. Mm. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about finding your purpose. It's overrated.
Yes.
Yeah. Your purpose is living and enjoying it and finding that passion and getting out there.
Fantastic. And do you have any plans for your next steps? Apart from, we mentioned the 3 years plan, but what are your next few weeks or months ahead in front of you? What are your next activities?
I have a few meetings provisionally arranged, which if one of them works, it could be a transformational challenge for me, which would be going in at high level corporate.
Wow!
All from meeting somebody on a train. Would you believe?
I have had amazing opportunities of doing business with people out of the most. You might be going networking regularly for weeks, 2-3 times a week, as you and I have done for a long time. Yeah. And then one day you're talking to someone and say, "Oh yeah, I need that. Oh, I know someone who needs that," and bang. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's something I would say also to anybody considering making the jump.
Yes.
Yeah? Oh yes, if you're considering making the jump, get out there and get networking. There is good networking. There's not so good networking. Yes. You have to take the chance. You have to get out there and meet people and talk to them.
Yes.
And the other thing is that, I forget who said it, but there is this expression that you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. Now, it can really hurt sometimes because you look around and you think, I'm not happy here. and that's one of the first realizations, who are you spending your time with?
I love that expression. I heard it many times, and I have started sometimes doing that analysis. If I'm working, I'm hanging out usually with a few people. You are the average of the 5. Then there is another very nice saying that I really like, which is, if you walk into a room and you're the most clever person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Absolutely.
which is another way of testing, if you are surrounded by the right people, which I use a
And
lot.
for clarification for the listeners, networking is not likely to be networking on Facebook.
No.
It's
going out
real
and
people,
talk to
face to face, sweaty armpits, everything else in the pub or wherever,
Yes.
but sober in the pub.
Yes. Not getting drunk with people. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Jim, I think this has been very, very nice. Thank you very much for your energy, which I always appreciate being in your presence, because you always emanate this energy.
Oh.
Yes, you do. And
Thank you, Massimo.
thank you very much for being my guest in this show, which is starting and is in its infancy. And so I'm looking forward to having you around. Maybe once we have a few more, to have another round of questions.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you very much,
Massimo.
Thank you.